Five.
Curry hits a three.
Four.
Houston with a drive. Deep left field.
Three.
Patrick hit by Watt. Sack number 10.
Two.
Messi with a record-breaking goal.
One.
Welcome to BSS Sports. Now, here are your hosts, Steve and Trevor.
Good evening. Afternoon. It's not the evening. Wow, good old start here. My name is Steven Schill. Across from me is Mr. Trevor Struthers. Of course, we're talking sports and the Chicago Cubs, the team that it seems everybody's rooting for, especially in Canada, now that the Toronto Blue Jays are out of things, at least for this year. This is good. The Cubs are in it. They haven't won in 100 or over 100 years. They have some, tough times ahead with the Cleveland Indians, but with that said, they took out the Dodgers, who are one of baseball's best.
The Cubs haven't won a World Series in, 108 years, I think is what we're talking about. And obviously, there's the talk about the Billy Goat curse. I'll be really curious tomorrow if there's a goat of some kind that shows up at Progressive Field in Cleveland. I think it'd be a hilarious jab at the Cubs, who obviously, this is their first World Series in 71 years. This is their first time where we've actually made such a big deal with them being in the World Series due to this World Series drought, because then it was only 30-something years old, maybe 40-something at the absolute max. So, this is obviously a big deal. The Chicago Cubs, Chicago's the third biggest market in the U.S. behind L.A. and New York, and obviously Toronto's right behind Chicago. They're definitely up there if you want to try to compare the closer market. So Chicago, big market team. Obviously the Cubs are the bigger market team than the White Sox. And there's a lot of crazy fanfare. Bill Murray, obviously a big Cubs fan, seeing his reaction. As a guy that, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate, watching Bill Murray movies, liking Bill Murray, to see a guy react like that to the Cubs getting to the World Series, it kind of brings an emotional connection to it. So obviously this is a big deal for the Cubs, first time in 71 years to get this far. And what's going to be really intriguing is how this series plays out. Obviously for the Indians, this definitely is not a common spot for them to be in either. Team that hasn't won the World Series in something like 40 years, which it seems very minuscule compared to what the Cubs have gone through. But two teams definitely that it's great to see where they are, because at the beginning of the year, people thought the Cubs definitely could obviously have got there. They were a step away from the World Series last year, so. And then the Cleveland Indians were maybe a bit of a surprise when it came down to what they did. But this series will be really interesting. Obviously, Blue Jays fans know all about the pitching staff that Cleveland's going to have in this series. One piece I'm really interested in is Trevor Bauer done for the postseason? Because I don't think we've heard that. And there's a shot there that maybe they try to have him pitch in a game. And I think that would make World Series history from the point of it would be the first guy with his situation getting hurt by a drone and having his finger cut open in a huge cut and have to try to pitch with it. But the big matchup will be the pitching of the Indians and the hitting of the Cubs. The Cubs are probably the best hitting team in the National League, and how that compares against an American League team in a best of 7 will be really interesting to see how that goes down. And it's not like the Cubs lack in pitching. They got great pitching from Hendricks in the clincher, for crying out loud. Gave up 2 hits over 7 innings. It's hard to be any better. They have Jake Arrieta. They have John Lester, was co-MVP of the NLCS. So, there's a top 3 right there that they can throw right at you, and all 3 guys have the ability to shut down an offense. So, it could be a lot like the ALCS where we see very little runs, but like I said, the Cubs have a great offense, great young offense as well, and the Indians, as we saw, also have ways to score runs from a young guy like Lindor. So this will be really interesting. I personally like the matchup.
So, of course, Chicago's been going at this for quite some time. The Cleveland Indians, though, they haven't won since 1948. So, technically, if you think about it, because Cleveland came into the league later on, it is kind of a tale of not winning for quite some time. But another aspect of it, which I think just because of the way that the locations are, these teams, neither of them really have, per se, of a home field advantage due to the fact that Chicago and Cleveland, they're not warm. they're cold. So these players, they're going to be used to it. We're not going to have any kind of environmental shocks for anybody compared to, let's say, somebody from the Florida Marlins, even though that's not even a relevant conversation at this point. But for this one, there's not. It's all based on talent. And who do you feel has more talent to take this one?
Man, I don't know. I mean, it's hard to go against the Cubs with what they've done just overall the last 2 years. But maybe there really is something to this curse. And, I mean, I guess in this series we're really going to find out. I'd be surprised if the Cubs entered not the favorites in this thing. Mainly also because, I mean, Cleveland has a tremendous pitching staff, but without Carrasco, and I don't know what the chances are these guys come back, but without Carrasco, without Salazar, that's a huge shot to the rotation. And like I said, we don't know what's going to happen with Trevor Bauer. So there's another guy there that could be a starter for them that might not be able to make a start. The inexperience factor of the guy in the clincher, I forget his name because he's only pitched in a couple major league games that pitched for the Indians, and he shut down the Blue Jays. So he could be really good if he had to go out there and pitch. So it's a little unknown, but I mean, if you want me to give a straight up prediction, I'll pick the Cubs in 6 games.
You are just peeved that the Blue Jays lost to the Indians, and that is okay. Relating it to the U.S. presidency, apparently Hillary Clinton grew up as a Cubs fan, so we'll see. Maybe the Cubs might win, and maybe she might win the election. We will find out. Now, going on the topic of the Toronto Blue Jays losing to the Cleveland Indians, not that we really want to talk about that, but it seems all the news has been with this Edwin Encarnacion situation. More, is he going to sign a new contract, etc. People have completely lost hope in Jose Bautista, and Trevor, do you think that's a good thing or a bad thing that Toronto no longer cares about Jose? And now I'm saying that from my personal opinion, because it just feels like there's nothing about Jose, and it's all focusing on hoping Edwin would resign, but then again, people are kind of iffy on that circumstance.
Yeah, Jose's best years probably behind him. I mean, definitely never going to hit 54 home runs again like he did in 2010. He's still a guy that can hit. The big issue, obviously, with him was the injuries of this past year, and his numbers suffered a bit. That may be, obviously, because when he was playing, he wasn't playing at the level that he would have liked to due to some sort of lingering injury. Yeah, Jose, little disappointing of a season for what he wanted, both injury-wise and performance-wise, but he can still hit home runs. He still hit some big home runs for the Blue Jays. It'd be interesting if they do move on from him, if they re-sign, say, a Michael Saunders, because they have 2 starting outfield positions they have to fill. The only one that's filled right now is Kevin Pillar in center field. So the 2 corner outfield positions, they need, obviously, people there. They're still obviously going to try to contend. I don't think they'd try to blow it up. There's really no reason to, even if you lose both Bautista and Edwin. The pitching staff's pretty much going to be back, and it was one of the best pitching staffs in the big leagues this year. Was it a fluke this year? We'll find out next year. We were asking the same question about Marco Estrada going into the year that just happened, and Marco Estrada delivered another great season. So who knows how the next season's going to go, but pitching staff-wise, it looks like they can contend. Edwin, I think, is the more likely of the 2 to return to the Blue Jays. What's going to end up happening, though, with Edwin? Who really knows? I mean, you throw money at any of these guys, and they'll sign anywhere. I mean, obviously, it was just a year ago we went through the David Price thing. So, yeah, I mean, if a team's willing to throw enough money at a player, the player's going to go wherever they want, no matter where the loyalties may lie. Just hopefully the Blue Jays are willing to fork out, because Edwin's not going to come cheap if they want him back.
Now you're talking about forking out, and when R.A. Dickey 4 years ago came to Toronto, we forked out the big chunk of cheese. Noah Syndergaard was the player that we sent to the Mets in exchange for R.A. Dickey, if you didn't know. If you don't know who Noah Syndergaard is, never look it up, because you will cry profusely, and you won't be able to do a single thing about it, because R.A. Dickey, now a free agent, finishing up with the Blue Jays with a 49-52 record after winning, holy jeez, what is the pitching award? I totally forget. The Cy Young. He won the Cy Young that year for the National League, gets traded to the Blue Jays for Mr. Noah Syndergaard, and it just seems like nothing happened. People blamed, the Rogers Center being a dome, and there wasn't enough airflow for the knuckleball to work. All these different things, and I mean, I've read his book that he wrote, and I mean, he seems like a genuine guy, and it just seems like it didn't work for R.A. Dickey. He did what he could, he was passionate about the game, and it just didn't work for him. There's nothing, negative that Blue Jays fans feel for him, except for, kind of the wish that we didn't trade for him now that we know who Noah Syndergaard is, when then we had no idea who he was. But do you think that Alex Anthopoulos got away with something kind of this big of a deal, because we had RA for 4 years, but it was an awful trade. We didn't really get much out of it, but we gave away arguably a top 5 pitcher in the league in 5 years.
Well, the way I look at it is player success doesn't really mean much to the fan base. Team success does. And R.A. Dickey wasn't part of this postseason roster. Nobody thought he was going to be. But he was last year. And obviously, I mean, even R.A. Dickey haters will tell you that, because they'll bring up that game against Kansas City that happened at the Rogers Center that obviously went horribly. R.A. Dickey, obviously, he was put in a tough spot. A knuckleballer winning a Cy Young never happened before. We didn't know how he was going to perform the next year. Then he gets obviously traded to a new team, new ballpark, which is a lot smaller. It's a league that's known for hitting more, a division that's known for hitting more in that league. So things just became really difficult for that right off the hop, the big changes. R.A. Dickey was never really bad as a Blue Jay. He had bad starts. Everybody has bad starts. But he was never that good. Now, I don't think anybody should have expected him to be that good, because he is a knuckleballer that won a Cy Young, and we had never seen a knuckleballer be that good before that. Now, he was very average, including in his last season, very average as a Blue Jays starting pitcher. Unfortunately, he gets a lot of hate for it because there was a lot of hype surrounding the trade coming to the Blue Jays. About the Syndergaard trade, it's unfortunate to give up Syndergaard. You got to give up something to get something. The Blue Jays, technically at the time of that trade, give up a guy yet to pitch in the big leagues for a guy that just won a Cy Young award. So you're going to have to pay a lot to get that guy. Now, what they also traded Nicolino in the Miami trade. Those were the big three. There was Nicolino, Syndergaard, and Sanchez. Now we see Aaron Sanchez up at the big leagues now. We see what he's doing now. He had just had a tremendous year, similar to the kind of numbers that Noah Syndergaard would be putting up in the National League, a league that's known for more pitching than hitting. So the hitting might be technically a little bit easier there. So, I mean, you were going to have to give up something to get something. What the Blue Jays did, though, is they made sure they held on to Aaron Sanchez. And Aaron Sanchez looks like he's going to be a heck of a pitcher for the Blue Jays to watch in the future. And they also have Marcus Stroman. So this team has a lot of young pitching that it'd be nice to have Noah Syndergaard, but it'd also be nice to do what the Blue Jays did the last 2 years. Maybe they don't if they don't make that trade.
So last topic of today, just because of how insane that this feels, is one, the Heritage Classic was yesterday, and I didn't even know it was happening. You texted me and you were like, hey, the Heritage Classic is on. And I was like, wait, what? And you're like, I don't know. I found out yesterday, too. So I don't know what's going on with this advertisement, but it didn't work. Don't know if people don't really care about the Heritage Classic. It was the Oilers at the Blue Bombers Stadium, I believe, taking on the Winnipeg Jets. The day before, Teemu Selanne and Mr. Wayne Gretzky hit the ice, and that was intriguing. But the more intriguing thing here is the Oilers are 5-1. I repeat, the Oilers are 5-1. Trevor, the Taylor Hall trade. It might have actually worked. What do you think?
Well, yeah, I mean, people don't really look like they got much defensively in that trade. They did get a defenseman, but it's like, what level of defenseman is the guy? I don't really know if it helped them, but like that trade per se. But really what it is you're getting Connor McDavid at year 2 in the NHL. Year 1, obviously, the injury affected how their overall year would have gone. It probably would have been a lot better if they had him in the lineup, obviously. Plus, he has more experience under his belt. I haven't watched too much of the Oilers games. Maybe Cam Talbot's having a better season so far. Obviously, goaltending, that's the be-all and end-all in hockey. And so if you're not getting good goaltending, you're going to struggle. I mean, Oilers fans know all about that because they just haven't had good goaltending. Maybe now they have some from Cam Talbot in this small stretch. But yeah, I mean, right now they're performing well as a team. The thing is, they during this playoff drought of theirs, they've probably had a start similar to this not too long ago. And it ultimately ended up faltering. The issue is, can they keep this up moving forward?
That's it for this edition of BSS Sports. You can follow us on Facebook and Twitter at BSS Sports. Make sure to check out all of our previous works at BSS Productions on YouTube. We'll catch you next Monday. For Steven Schill and Trevor Struthers, have a good one.